Let's start with extinction. Are we close to extinction? Extinction of the human race. And the reason I mention it here, fella says, talking about the Ukraine war, right? He says, could well be the most dangerous period in human history. Yeah, in a way it is because we do have the power to destroy the world now. Talk about pinky in the brain. Yeah, we have the power now. And I'm not talking about nukes. I'm talking about really destroying the global economy. If you destroy the global economy, uh, what that means is suddenly, money is no more. And if money is no more, that means that, you can't produce food, distribute food, or buy food. And so millions of people, billions of people die of starvation primarily. There could be some nukes being thrown back and forth, that should help the process. But the majority of people, I think, will die of starvation because suddenly the global economy will be dead. Okay? Without an economy, you don't produce food or distribute it to the cities where most people live today. Anyways, more dangerous, I guess, here is right now, or the way this is headed. Maybe, one possibility is that not only is this an attack against Germany and against Russia, primarily Germany. The United States conquered Germany without firing a shot, like I say. Germany and France primarily. Europe, continental Europe. Uh, it's against Russia. Obviously, they try to destroy the Russian economy. But this is also a war against China. Okay, it's a war against China because now the United States has raised the possibility that if China helps Russia economically during this period that the United States is trying to tighten the screws, well, then China's going to suffer. And the United States really wants to stop China from expanding. And this gives them a good opportunity to do so. They just threatened China and they said, look, if you help Russia, they might do what they did to Russia, confiscate billions of dollars that Chinese have, outside China. One, and then the other one, they can stop commerce with Europe and the United States and all its colonies. And so that would limit China quite a bit. Chinese have to think a lot about that. And so you got to think about what's going on. The United States might kill two birds with one stone. At least I think it's trying for that. And I think this was planned way back when, some months ago. The United States goaded Putin to attack Ukraine. The United States doesn't care about Ukraine. I mean, they're all Russians anyway. So right now they have Russians killing Russians over there. The people suffering, all that stuff, that's good for propaganda. That's all that's good for. The important thing is, what comes out of this. And what is coming out of that is the United States has conquered Europe without firing a shot, is causing a lot of trouble to Russia, which has all these nukes. And one possibility is that if they overthrow Putin, maybe you get a friendly government in Moscow for a change. And suddenly it's Russia and the United States against China. And I think the Chinese are evaluating that possibility as well. So this is going to get interesting. No matter how it comes out, how it evolves, I think you have to consider all the possibilities. Okay, and there's a lot of speculation on the governments as well. What could happen on the other side, and it all depends on what people on those sides do. Like if the Russian military or some powerful people there overthrow Putin, the United States cannot predict that. But if it happens, hey, we've accomplished our goal. Okay, so yeah, it's going to get interesting in the next few days. Anyways, talking around that problem, someone says it's not against Germany, meaning the war is not against Germany. It's against the last immense European white country. Whoa, a little bit of racism there, huh? And his sovereign leader, the first enemy of the capitalist empire. Whoa. Russia is hated because is the last immense white people European country, undefeated by U.S. and unwilling to be ruled by financial elites. And all I can tell you is from a political point of view, I've never been racist. I never cared about race at all. I always talked about humans doing this and humans doing that, but I'm colorblind as far as as people are concerned. I'm not into racism at all. But no, I think Russia itself has a capitalist system, and it also is ruled by elites, by an autocracy. It's just the way it is. All countries have the same system. There is no different system on planet Earth. Okay, you have a few oligopolies, a few at the top and the rest on the bottom. It's no country is different as far as I'm concerned. So I don't think this is about racism. This is about imposing, one mafia on another. And is any of the mafias better than the other? Is Al Capone better than Bugs Moran or vice versa? The South Side versus the North Side? Uh, you shouldn't take sides. You should just try to be objective and see what happens. That's it. And see how it affects you. That's it. Okay, my recommendation. Anyways, someone says, even if there was a global power outage, some computers will still maintain the blockchain using solar, hydro, geothermal, or backup power. Yeah, I don't think so. If you have power outage, this is not a question of running a little motor at home and running your computer somehow. And here, let's continue and we'll answer that question or that issue. Well, it says the internet does not depend on satellites, but they are used for some internet providers like Starlink. Well, you got to think of we talked about the banking system. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about, internet to see what's going on in Hollywood, okay? We're talking about money here. We're talking about the global economy, and if the global economy collapses, we're all in trouble. That's the issue, okay? That's the context. And so you look it up, it says the majority of our internet works through submarine cables. Now, because we were talking about, killer satellites, the fact that Putin at the last moment might decide to kill the satellites, and this fellow essentially is saying that, satellites don't run the internet, but we're talking about the banking system, and that's up there, okay? You need the satellites for the banking system. And anyways, a lot of it runs through cables under the sea. And you think the Russians have a harder time or an easier time of killing satellites or cutting the wires underneath the ocean with a submarine, for example? Are you going to patrol the whole line with your submarines? So I don't know. If things get really bad, they could kill the internet. And I'm talking about international banking. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, none of the other nonsense. Okay, so yeah, I can say that if the internet falls apart, we're dead. And I'm saying that if they cut the cables underneath the ocean or kill the satellites above, they're cutting the banking system. They're killing it. And here you see a little article. Okay, there's many of these on the internet, by the way. Why mobile banking would be unthinkable without satellites, the role played by satellites in our modern financial system. And it says the modern financial system is dependent on them. Okay, so keep in mind we can't live without the satellites. But if they kill the cables that go underneath the ocean, it's the same thing. And I think it's easier to kill that than to kill a satellite. I would think. Okay. Anyway, it says this article just went in there and went in some detail. You can read the article later on, but it says several billion transactions per hour. Precise timing is crucial. You transfer money, recipient returns it at a later time. If he returns it immediately, money arrives before it is sent. And money can't be at two places at once. These are some of the problems that it would create if the satellites were killed. Okay, right now we depend a lot on the internet for everything. Okay, our very lives on this abstraction, on the matrix. We're part of the matrix. We depend a lot on that, and so we can't let it fall apart. If it does fall apart, we're all dead. Okay, so that's how fragile our lives are. It depends on maybe a guy like Putin who decides to say, "Hey, I've got nothing more to lose," and goes in there and cuts the cables, kills the satellites. And he says, "Oh, you stole money from us. You kept all this money that we had abroad. Well, I'm going to kill your satellites and see who has the money." What is money after all? Faith. That's all it is. In God we trust. When we become atheists in money, we're all dead. Okay, here's now a fellow says people having 4 or 5 children per family will replace those with lower fertility. Europe may become more Islamic and the U.S. may become more Hispanic, but it's not that difficult to produce more humans. Poor fellow, he's not even close. He had no clue whatsoever. No, what he doesn't understand is what was it? 1963 was the last highest year that we had for growth rate. Since then, the growth rate has steadily, this is important, steadily been declining. And there's no way we can turn that back. Once a species, any species, overturns its population pyramid, it can never recover again. And humans are no exception to that. No matter how intelligent we are, no matter how much technology we have, we cannot overturn the population pyramid ever again. From now, it's going to be declining until it reaches zero population growth, known as ZPG, which is predicted to occur sometime in mid-century, this century for sure. And that's if everything goes according to plan. People are not going to have children. And they're not having children, they're not going to have children. And the reason, we know the reason too, okay? And here's the reason, okay? People are moving from the country to the city. They're moving from rural areas to urban areas. It's known as a transition, the urban transition. Red line there, that's for the world. But you can see all countries pretty much are becoming more urbanized. So people are moving from the country to the city. They're abandoning the country, the farms, and those are being taken over by big corporations, which have these economies of scale for producing food. And so, it's pushing people out of the country. And what's the issue? The issue is when people move to the cities, it's forbidden to have children in any country of the world. You can't have children in the cities. It's forbidden. It's outside the rule. There's a law against that. It's a natural law. Okay, it's known as density-dependent birth rates. Okay, and so no, we will not have children in the cities. Okay, maybe 1, 2 here and there, and ever less and less and less, fewer and fewer and fewer. So no, we're not going to have children. And so he says it's easy to produce children. We're not talking about sleeping and having a baby. Okay, we're talking about whether a woman wants to have a baby. Not only a woman, a man as well, right? But whether they want to have any babies. And in the cities, that culture is gone away, aside from the economics of it. You can't maintain a child in the city, let alone 10, and nobody has 10 children anymore. 4, 3, 2, 1, pretty soon it's going to be 0. Most couples just have recreational sex. That's it. No reproductive sex. That's going away. It's fading into oblivion. And there's no way governments can put a gun to your head and say, have children. Never going to happen again. Okay, so forget about having children. And what is children? Children is demand. No demand, that has to have an effect on sales of every company on the planet. More and more companies will be fighting for the crumbs, for what's left out there, people who don't have, refrigerators or kitchens or whatever. And what's going to happen is a lot of these companies are going to merge, or one's going to declare bankruptcy or whatever. There's going to be fewer and fewer companies producing goods for whatever sales there is out there. And that's going to, it's going to be a slow process where demand does not increase. Doesn't increase because population is not increasing. And what is population? It's demand. Demand is population. Okay, another fellow says, changing the subject a little bit here, earliest evidence of modern humans in Europe discovered in France, NBC News, okay, seems to suggest a layer of human habitation between layers of Neanderthal habitation. Did they hang or did they fight? Still no sign that we ever met. And you go to the article, this article came out recently, and it says the modern human group was part of an incursion from the Eastern Mediterranean coast, and they all come from the East Mediterranean, right? That didn't last long before they again vanished from Europe. So you go to this article, and the article says that they found humans, not Neanderthals, but humans in the middle of France, southern France, actually. And the group that they found, okay, suppose they found one tooth. And they said it's human. And because of that, they said there were humans in France 54,000 years ago. I think 54 or 56, but I'll check that in a second here. Anyways, they said 54, 56,000 years ago, there were humans in France, but that dynasty or whatever, that group, didn't last at all. That did not reproduce the population of anyone on Earth today. That's the argument, okay? Well, it's so convenient, it looks like these people just wanted to publish their paper. That's it. And I'll tell you why. Here's my take on this, okay? Here you see, these are the caves that claim to have the oldest humans, supposedly verified humans, okay? The Păstăreacu Oasis in Romania, that's probably the best one. They found a jaw there, and it was dated to around 40,000 years ago, anywhere from 37 to 42,000 years ago. By that time, there were no Neanderthals in Romania, okay? So, yeah, I can accept that. The next candidate is the one in Bulgaria, okay, a cave in Bulgaria. That one was dated to 43,000 years ago, and that's a little more doubtful, okay? Again, they try to push it back. Why? Because they want to show that humans and Neanderthals had sex, and that's how the Neanderthals disappeared. That's the theory. And so anything that proves the theory, that convinces people that the theory is correct, is accepted for publication. And so these people pushed it back to 43,000 years, and the new paper says, no, it's 54,000 years. We found it in France. Okay? When you go to the article, it says, not to the article, but this is something that I think from Wikipedia referring to that article. It says, articles in the journal Science as well as in Nature said that the tooth, they found one tooth, okay, a child's tooth, was too badly damaged to be able to tell with certainty if it was from a Neanderthal or a human. Okay, and my take on that is, without knowing anything, without ever seeing, I'm saying it's Neanderthal. It's got nothing to do with humans. Humans were not in Europe, especially in France, 54,000 years ago. The best we can think of is maybe around 40,000 years ago being in the East Mediterranean region. That we can accept, but 54,000 years ago in France, I doubt that very much. And here's the map, just so you can see where these caves are. Okay, there you have the Grotte Mandrin, which is the one that recently published that 54,000 years ago in France they found this tooth, which they don't know if it's human, but these people claim it's human, so that they can claim that they found the first human ever to step foot in Europe. You know, there you have the other tooth, one in Romania and the one in Bulgaria. Okay, and it suggests still that there was a migration of humans, Cro-Magnons, right? Humans who entered Europe, and they probably came from Africa, okay, the out of Africa theory, okay, and maybe they went around the Black Sea there, maybe they went through Turkey, through Istanbul, who knows, but somehow they found these remains, and this I can accept a little bit because I think by then the Neanderthals were no longer living in that region of the world. In fact, I think the Neanderthals made their last stand in Gibraltar, over there in southern Spain. That's probably where the last Neanderthals lived, and they vanished away. By the time humans arrived, all they found were dead bones, maybe from long ago. They probably arrived 1,000 years after the Neanderthals disappeared. So I don't think they ever met. At least this theory of sex, that the Neanderthal disappeared because they were a much smaller population and they were kind of absorbed by the hordes of humans that came into Europe. No, I don't buy it at all. It's absolute nonsense. And here's why. We'll see here in a second. Fellow asked me, he says, do you have any opinion on Danny Vendramini's theory? Okay, and Danny Vendramini has not so much a theory. The theory is the same one as the establishment. But Vendramini and I, what we look eye to eye on is the following, and is what did the Neanderthals look like? Okay, and here's the one from 1909, probably one of the first notions that we had, the image we have of Neanderthal. And from there, people that said, oh, they were brutes, they were backward, they looked like monkeys, they looked like gorillas. And Vendramini pretty much says that he agrees with that. That's his version of Neanderthal. And the official line is the guy on the right. And by the way, that one from BBC 2013, that's an image that they made of the same Neanderthal that you see in square number 1, the 1909 Boule-Kupka Neanderthal. So we have these artists, and they came up with totally different versions of what Neanderthal looked like. Now, if you were a girl, I can't say for men, but if you were a girl and, they put a gun to your head and they say, look, you got to sleep with one of these 3 guys, I think you would choose the guy on the right. That's what I think. Of course, I don't know, maybe some women are masochists and they want to be punched around. I don't know. But I would think most women would like to sleep with the guy on the right if they had no choice, okay? Yeah, Neanderthal has suffered the greatest evolution in the last 100 years. Went from being a monkey to being a Hollywood star. And why? Because they're trying to push a theory. They're trying to push the interbreeding theory, the admixture theory. They want you to believe it because they have no other explanation for how the Neanderthals disappeared. And so they brought in the geneticists and they say, do a genetic analysis on these guys. Well, they found no mitochondrial DNA, which comes from the mother. Okay, so humans have no mothers, no Neanderthal mothers. And then they checked also the, the Y chromosome of males, and none of us have any Y chromosomes from any Neanderthal. So we had no Neanderthal fathers. So let's see, we have no Neanderthal mothers, we had no Neanderthal fathers. Sounds like we have nothing to do with the Neanderthals. And they found 2% to 3%. They try to stretch that out. Some people even claim it's 6% commonality in nuclear DNA with the Neanderthals, which could readily be explained that we had a common ancestor 800,000 years ago. And so with that tiny bit, they say, we know what happened. 50,000 years ago, we met up with the Neanderthals. We had a great party, swapped wives, and we came out of those groups. Okay? And Vendramini essentially says the same thing. Okay? He says that somehow, the Neanderthals went to the Levant, especially areas around Israel and Iraq. And over there, they met up with us humans coming from Africa. We drank beer, we swapped wives, okay? And he says, look, this is the theory. The theory is the Neanderthals, they killed a lot of our people, and they raped the women. Again, you saw that gorilla, he was interested in our women. Okay, so they raped our women. The women were pregnant with hybrids. Those hybrids grew up, and those hybrids later on killed humans and Neanderthals, and we are the descendants of those hybrids. That's his theory. And so what do I have to say about that? Well, here's in a nutshell what I have to say. Okay, I'm saying that Neanderthals were never in the Levant. Never. They found some skeletons in a couple caves in Israel and Iraq, and also Syria, that whole region there. Okay, they find some bones here and there. People who studied those bones in great detail, and there's differences of opinion here, but they claim that those Neanderthals, those bones, they don't match the Neanderthals of Western Europe, Spain, France, Germany, Belgium. The bones are significant or noticeably different, the ones that they find in the Levant compared to those in Western Europe. So you got to look that up. Whenever they say that there were Neanderthals in the Levant, in places like Iraq and Israel, you better look very closely for other papers, because you will find that people disagree that, they don't agree that those were Neanderthals. Okay? And my argument, again, is against that, saying that Neanderthals never had any reason to venture south. The Neanderthal was an animal made for the Arctic. He would have, can you take a polar bear and put him in the equator? That's essentially what you're saying that Neanderthals did, that they migrated all the way south to the Levant. And I'm saying that never happened. Neanderthals lived and died in Europe, Western Europe primarily. How far east they extended, I have no idea, but I'm saying that if anything, it's Europe. That's it. Never in the Middle East you find a Neanderthal. So Vendramini's theory that somehow these Neanderthals raped our women, and then the offspring of those killed both Neanderthals and humans, and they were the survivors, and we come from that stock. That's only based on, again, he wants to be at peace with the establishment. And I'm saying none of that has anything to do with how the Neanderthals disappeared. The Neanderthals disappeared when their population pyramid overturned and they lost their genetic diversity. Two whammies that they got. And that's the same for any species that dies in a background extinction. So the mechanism for background extinction is the same for any species as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so that's where I stand. Okay, moving on to a couple other issues. We had the loonies and the moonies, and we have a couple people who are still trying to struggle with the spin issue. Okay, I'm just going to mention them. One fellow says, have you ever watched the moon for an entire night? Take photos every hour? The moon sure rotates. It does not spin. Rotate, but does not spin. You look up the word rotate, it says to cause to turn around an axis or center point, to revolve. And what is spin? You look it up, it says revolve or to rotate. And then another fellow over there shows why we can't use these synonyms, because they all get confused and they talk past each other. The fellow says the moon does not spin on its axis, but it sure does rotate, meaning orbit, around the earth. You see where the problem is. These people go back and forth because they use the wrong words. They're using the word rotate without defining it, and one guy means orbit, the other guy means spin. That's the problem. Okay, and so this is what I said the other day. I'll say it one more time for last time, I hope. And that spin to turn around an axis, and to orbit to move in a curved path around another object. Okay, so does the moon orbit the Earth? Yes. Does the moon spin? No. Okay, why doesn't it spin? Because it does not turn around its axis. And then the idiot comes in there and says, oh, but it does, because see, it takes 27 days to turn around its axis. Very slow top. No. It doesn't turn around its axis because the axis is rotating with the moon. Okay, you can't use a one-dimensional axis, which is what the mathematicians use. You cannot imagine a one-dimensional axis spinning, let alone imagine a one-dimensional axis to begin with. So the issue never popped up in the minds of the mathematicians whether the axis, the one-dimensional axis, is spinning together with the moon. So the fact that the moon goes, in other words, orbits around the Earth, does not mean it spins on its axis like a top spins on its axis. And they say, well, it takes 27 days to spin on its axis. Absolutely not, because the axis is spinning together with the moon. If we were to, select a mountain or a valley on the surface of the moon, and we could put a stick, a three-dimensional imaginable stick, not an unimaginable one-dimensional stick, but a three-dimensional stick right through the moon, and we hold it still, the moon would not be, that mountain would not be changing its location with respect to the axis. A three-dimensional axis. To the atoms that comprise the three-dimensional axis. That's physics. Now, mathematics, they don't care about that. So they put a one-dimensional axis and they say, yeah, the moon spins because it rotates. What do you mean by rotate? That spins on its axis. So they're chasing their tails around because they don't define these terms. That's what it's all about. Okay, another fellow says, went to the other side. Give me a second here. Says, here it is. So the moon does not spin because its axis is tidally locked to the object which the moon's axis is orbiting. Have I understood that correctly? Poor fellow. What does tidally locked have anything to do with spinning? Does the top spin because it's tidally locked with the walls of your house? Is that how you determine whether the top is spinning? My God. No, we define the word spin, and then if it matches the definition, we say that the top is spinning. And if the moon matches the definition of the word spin, we say the moon is spinning. The problem is it doesn't. Why? Because spin requires that the axis stands still and the mountain on the outside, on the surface, change its location with respect to every atom of that axis. Three-dimensional axis, not one-dimensional mathematical axis. No such thing in physics. Okay, and here we have another fellow, and he's a flat earther, and he says, funny how some people still believe in nukes and satellites. Do you think you ever saw a real satellite image? My poor God. Yeah, you have people who are still living in the Stone Age, and my only question is, what are these people doing in science? They should be in church praying or, cleaning latrines or something. They don't have the brains to do science. Why do these people come into to science sites? What are they looking for? And this is what Googles my mind, flat earthers, what are they doing in physics?